Welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked, where we break down what it takes to build a thriving travel business. Here's your host, co-founder of Gifted Travel Network and best-selling author, Meredith Calloway.
Hello, and welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked podcast. I am your host, Meredith Calloway, and on today's episode, we actually have something relatively new for us. We have someone from outside of the Gifted Travel Network, which I'm really excited. But let me just go ahead and introduce her. It's Jennifer Jacob with Tique. Jennifer is the co-founder of Tique HQ and a former travel agency owner who scaled her business to multi-million-dollar sales before successfully exiting. Now she helps travel advisors build profitable, sustainable businesses through turnkey business resources at Tique HQ. As the host of Tique Talks, another excellent podcast, she brings candid conversations and actionable insights designed to help advisors think like CEOs and grow with intention. Absolutely love that. Welcome to the podcast, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Meredith. Thank you for having me. I'm elated to be here.
I've so enjoyed listening to your podcast because I'm such a podcast junkie. And when I find another one where I'm like, oh my God, I love this because now I can sink my teeth into it and have something to go to when I'm going for a walk or
Vice versa. I was just listening to yours while getting ready yesterday before we chatted.
Awesome. Well, Jennifer and I have had a couple of conversations recently where I'm discovering something really cool about our parallel lives. And that is, I do believe that we both entered the travel industry, came up with a very similar perspective on what's needed. And I think we're both on a very similar mission in this industry, which is to help travel advisors build what we say or what I say at GTN is we want to help people build thriving businesses, but also lives that they love, right? Because you can have a very successful business, but it's you're in it 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day, and everything else in your life gets left behind, and that leads to burnout, and that's not sustainable. And I think I'm excited about today's conversation because I think what you're doing is going to specifically address that. So tell us just a little bit about how you got into the travel industry.
Well, like many advisors, I feel like I've heard this story multiple times as I'm getting to know more and more advisors through interviews as well. But I studied abroad and I did not grow up traveling. That was not something that was in our family's dynamic. We went camping for traveling and that was great, but I did want to see more. And so I found a way to get a loan. I went without my family's support. And that's just kind of how headstrong I was about making it happen. And I sunk my teeth in and I got addicted to travel. And I was in HR for a long time after college, and I realized that I just kept on getting distracted by the thought of traveling more. And that's when vlogging was really big and influencers started traveling a lot. And I heard someone say, whatever is distracting you from your day job is where you should actually pour your energy into. And I was like,
Wow.
I'm doing the wrong thing right now because HR is not what I'm daydreaming about. So
Which is also a very, that's a total parallel with what happened to me as well. So love it.
Exactly. When you were speaking yesterday and we were chatting through that, I was like, yes, you get into these very traditional roles and what society told you should be doing and what looks like success, and you start to climb the ladder. And I just realized that if I never did this, it was going to get harder and harder to peel away from the corporate ladder. I was going to keep excelling in HR. And just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you can't be great at something else. So I ended up getting an email from a friend and it said how to travel the world for free. And I opened it up and this email changed my life and I still credit her to this day. But I ended up learning about a company called workaway.info where you can work in exchange for stay.
Okay.
And I applied to an organic olive grove in Italy, and they said, actually, we already finished our renovation, but now we're doing slip covers. And I had gone to school for fashion design and I had a background in sewing. And I was like, actually, I can help you do slip covers. That's more in my repertoire than renovating a farmhouse.
That's hysterical.
So I moved in with this family without ever even meeting them, and they picked me up from the train station. British family that had purchased a farmhouse in Tuscany, well, actually in Umbria, right on the border. And I stayed with them for a month. We had tea in the afternoon. I helped them cook vegan meals in the evenings. And I just had my own apartment upstairs. And I used that time, I extended it on both ends, and I stayed abroad for 3 months. And I used that time to create content and build trust with my audience. And that is ultimately how I launched a travel business, was
Wow.
that experience. So it was a little.
That is fascinating. Oh my gosh, that is so crazy. And then the fact that it was something that was even more aligned with some of your skills.
So strange. But it was the jumping off point, and when I came back, at that time, I thought that I was just gonna do an itinerary creation company. I did not have the anticipation of having a commissionable model, and so I was building itineraries in Travefy. This is before I even was in the industry at all, and I had found this software, Travefy, that could allow me to build itineraries, and I was essentially selling my services for $25 a day, and I would build in these itineraries if someone
Yeah.
had booked a hotel or an Airbnb. And I realized that there is an entire scalable, much more scalable version of this, and it's called being a travel advisor. And I just wanted to be approachable. And at that time, I felt like travel advising or travel agents were a luxury good only, and they were a luxury service only. But I wasn't in a season of life that would allow for that kind of investment, and neither were my peers and my colleagues. So I wanted to make something approachable. And
Mm,
I've learned along the way of how to scale, and that there are certain limitations that, an approachable, I call it approachable luxury, like the 4-star
mhm,
with dabbles of 5-star, kind of that functional balance of an itinerary. That's where I really thrive because it was scalable, but I could still sell it well to an audience and graduate them to a higher end
mhm.
itinerary in years to come. So that's kind of how my business evolved. But then I opened my own agency. I started a mentorship program. We added in education, and when I decided to grow my family, I ultimately sold that business because in COVID, Robin and I, my co-founder of Tique, we had realized that there was a real opportunity for other advisors to benefit from what we had built inside of the agency model, and that was templates, that was education, and I didn't want it to stay in a silo. I wanted to be able to help the industry at scale, and we were seeing advisors struggle during COVID, but it was a perfect time to implement
Yes,
systems when advisors simply didn't have the time ever before. So that's how we started Teak.
I agree. And I'm so glad that you found the profession because even though that wasn't your end game, the profession needs people like you and needs people like you and Robin. You guys have this real expertise, a massive, important, critical part of the travel agency service delivery. And nobody's teaching it and nobody's creating repeatable systems around it. And it's um, creating, it's causing people to either not grow
Right.
because they just don't have the ability to scale or grow and burn out.
And I absolutely was burning out. I did burn out. I will say that.
Yeah.
It's not that I was. I did because I was building a business while also mentoring, and I always tell people that there's real value in having a fabulous host agency because I went independent and I didn't know what I didn't know. And
Yeah.
had I known then what I know now, I would have just found a great host with fantastic education that had an ecosystem of support because I was really struggling to do a lot of things on my own. And it did give me context to build Tique, obviously. I believe that all of these things were put in my path for a reason. But that's why hosts like Gifted are so valuable, because you are providing the education. But I appreciate that you say we're filling a gap, because there are other industries that have this entire paper trail laid out for them. Like, I think about realtors and I'm like,
I
they are
know.
given everything they need to be successful. They get a certification and then they
Mhm.
get licensed by their state, and the templates exist. And that
Yeah.
did not exist for us. And to that fact, I didn't know that I was supposed to send wrap-up documents. I didn't know the life cycle of a booking.
Right.
So here my clients are just like arriving in Dominican Republic and being like, "Where's our transfer?" And I'm like, "I don't know, look at your receipt from 6 months ago when you booked it with me." And they're like, it's not on there," because, they're not actually relaying that information. I did get wrap-up documents, but they looked the same to me as a novice
Right.
at that
Yeah.
time, and I didn't realize it. So that's one goal that we really had with scaling these templates to the industry, is not only allowing people to scale once they've plateaued, which was where we were at, but also those beginners to set a roadmap for them so that they don't have to figure it out on their own,
Yeah.
and they can scale immediately, and their clients can think they're professionals from day one, because that is where there's really a gap in the industry, I feel.
Massive, massive gap in the industry. What I say is there are three most common blind spots I've come across over the last 15 years. They don't know how to monetize the business. And another way of saying that is they just simply don't know how to grow their revenues faster than their expenses, which is not that easy to figure out, especially in such a low margin. I mean, honestly, 10%, 15%, whatever, somewhere between 10 and 15% on a travel booking. I mean, you have to do a lot of bookings to really get those revenues to grow
Yeah.
faster than what it costs to operate the business. Second blind spot is not knowing how to effectively market and build a really good book of business. And especially since it's funny, like the things that are really good about the profession and consortia are creating incredibly beautiful marketing materials for us, but that becomes a little bit of a crutch for the newbie because they think, "Oh, my host is providing all this great marketing. I just need to tap into that. Check, that's done." No, that's a layer of marketing, but there's so much more to your marketing plan than
Yeah.
just opting them into direct mail pieces and a monthly magazine. And the third blind spot, which I think is really your expertise, is they don't know how to manage the operations so that they can grow without looking like Lucy and Ethel in the Chocolate Factory episode.
That's what it is. You are trying to keep up with it. And I'm going to fully credit Robin, my co founder and business partner. She is so systems based.
Mhm.
And we transitioned to Travel Joy. This is when we went independent. I didn't do that strategically. I'd love to credit them and say that all the reasons that I did select them, but I actually selected them simply out of kind of like a knee jerk reaction of needing a CRM. And then we realized the capabilities of adding templates. And then Robin built out this 14 email workflow. And that's evolved into a 44 email workflow with 14 forms and these two corresponding task lists. And it wasn't until then that I realized, okay, there are probably every advisor, honestly, I was going to say a percentage, but I think almost every advisor at that time was rewriting every email from scratch. And
Absolutely.
and we were really realizing the power of templates. And I know that there's a lot of arguments for templates aren't personalized, but you can personalize templates. Every
Mhm.
time we sent a template, we were personalizing it,
Yeah.
but fill in the blank at that point. And
Yeah.
something you and I were talking about is that all of these five-star brands that travel advisors are selling, Auberge, Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, they have the exact systems and processes at every single hotel across the world.
Yeah.
That is why they are so great. So travel advisors need to think of it in that way. A
Right.
templated process
Yeah.
allows for personalization. It doesn't detract from it.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a really, really important point. Just because you're delivering a luxury level of service doesn't mean it has to be customized every single time.
Yeah.
Another aspect of delivering a luxury level of service is consistency.
Right.
And what you've created is how you ensure consistency. And when you hire someone, when you get to the point where you should be hiring someone, which we encourage so much sooner than everybody's ready, it then you plug and play. Like there's a lot less training you have to do when you have something like what you've set up. So, yeah.
Hiring is also a mindset. So, just coming from HR, I am very big on hiring for culture, not for past experience. And so, when we've educated people on how to hire, it's all about how someone can step into a role with pride and enthusiasm like you, but you cannot expect someone to do it exactly like you.
Yeah.
And there's beauty in that because when someone actually has their full brain capacity dedicated, they might find a better way to do it than you. And there's actually so much that you can gain from outsourcing it. So many people are scared, well, they're not going to do it like me. Actually,
Yeah.
did you think that maybe just take the ego out of it for a second? It's so easy to get wrapped up in that.
Yes.
And I'm the first to say it because I'm like, but I love my clients. No one's gonna love my clients like me. Okay, love your clients. Outsource the other things that someone can do better than you, like your bookkeeping, like your reconciliation, like your auditing, like your wrap up documents. All of those things can be outsourced. And so you don't have to take yourself out of the personal brand that you've built, but someone might actually be able to do it better. Don't get in your own way of thinking that because someone else is doing it, they might not do it as well. But different isn't bad. And
Yeah.
I think we need to think through that too. But they will make mistakes. Our client experience manager, she made an $800 mistake in the first 2 months probably, and she was so apologetic. She's like, "You can take it from my
Oh
paycheck." I'm
gosh.
like, "Absolutely not. I hired you. That is a business expense. You are not
Yeah.
an independent contractor. You made a mistake. I asked you to do something." And I'm a big believer that anything wrong in your business is your fault. And that's just accountability and ownership. That's not
Yeah.
a negative. And when you can step into that and say, okay, there's a problem in my business. It is my fault. I didn't educate her on what she should have said. I didn't lay out a process beforehand. I didn't set her up for success in that moment. What can I do to avoid this in the future? One, I need to make it right for the client. Two, now I need to make it right internally so it never happens again.
Wow. That is wisdom.
It's painful.
Whoever, if you're listening and you need to rewind and get that again and write it down. I mean, that was really good, really, really powerful. I mean, and I love that attitude because it's taking a challenge and being like, okay, this is because of me. You're taking accountability for something that showed up and it was a mistake made by someone else. But it's like, okay, so let's use this to make everything better. Let's make it better to the client, but also let's make it better to internally. I love that. So cool. So let's unpack the hiring process,
Okay.
especially with your HR background. Out of curiosity, do you have an opinion on W-2 or 1099 when you are hiring someone?
Okay. Thank you for asking this because this is the hill I'll die on. So
I love it.
we're
So you
getting
do have an opinion, clearly.
so many people in this industry are solopreneurs, and
Yes.
I recognize that. They are also personal brands many times. When they are on social media, they are the ones showing up. They're putting their brand photos up there, and they are essentially the product. The hotel is not the product. The destination is not
Yes.
the product. The
Speak
travel
it.
advisor is the product. And so when you bring on a sub IC to your brand identity, and this is something that I have no regrets of how I built my agency. I absolutely loved that experience. It gave me so much context, and I did have the vision that aligned with growing a brand. But here is the reality. If you want to grow your personal brand, your book of business, it needs to be a W-2. The reality is you cannot expect anyone to be invested if they are an independent contractor in the brand that you've built. They can walk away without warning. They do not have to attend a meeting unless it is about their contract. You cannot define their business hours. Therefore, you can't actually define if they need to engage in an emergency situation. So, bringing on someone as a contractor, whether it's for administrative support or as an IC because you're like, I'm overwhelmed with leads, I want another booking agent, I'm going to bring on an IC, you're then essentially outsourcing your business to someone who can leave without proper notice and that you can't control the quality. You can define processes, but that's kind of it. You can't even give performance evaluations.
Yeah.
So I am very pro W-2 because for me to deliver on the promise of the planning fee that you've taken from a client, you need to have operational hours. You need to define when someone is going to respond and how that escalation works. You need to have them invested. And I think that comes from paying a living wage, a very fair wage, giving benefits, treating people well. Our Tique team members, we actually have a team. We are made up of now 6 team members, and we have summer Fridays. So if you're done on Friday, you have summer Fridays. We have a simple IRA that we do matching. We have,
Wow.
I believe, 12 paid holidays now because we're a team of primarily moms and school's out. Nothing's getting done on those days anyway. So it's just reality. And we believe in paying competitively so that people aren't seeking to go somewhere else. They're working remotely. If they need to go pick up their kid, if they need to go to the dentist, you treat people fairly and they have no reason to leave because you're giving them the livelihood that they need. And that's where I think a company can thrive. An IC model where someone is building their own book of business from your marketing efforts, that is really a house of cards. And
Yeah.
unless your contract is one competitive, which it's very hard to have an
Yeah.
IC competitive contract, especially when you're a sub IC and you're hosted,
Yes. Yeah.
that's a whole different podcast episode. But that is so hard to frankly make profit on. And
Right.
here you are mentoring someone, they can walk away with all the education you've
Yeah.
empowered them with and you have nothing to show for it. And they might even be able to take your clients if your contract doesn't state that they can't. So there's a lot to unpack with hiring and the structure. And I know people are scared to bring on W-2s because that means they're accountable for
Oh,
paying them
yeah.
every week. But let me tell you, you will be paid in dividends if you hire the right people the right way and you treat them well. You will make more than you ever could by being the brand still, controlling the quality, and being able to keep all your leads, frankly. And even if you want to bring on a booking agent that's salaried, I think that's a great model to do that,
Yeah.
or an
I
experience
agree.
manager that you hand it off. So there are so many different ways to work in this industry. And I'm just a big advocate of if you are the brand, keep the brand integrity and hire really great help.
I love that, and it's very consistent with the philosophy we have, at GTN. So we're gonna die in the same hill.
Good. I went down a rabbit hole, so I'm glad that you agree.
But we are a minority.
Yeah, I know. I know.
But we're a minority because it's just fear. It's really coming from a place of fear. People are I mean, people are afraid to hire to begin with because they feel like it's such a commitment. It's like they have the commitment phobia. They also don't wanna be managing people. I come across that often, especially people who have retired from corporate that manage teams of 200 people. They're like, "I'm done with managing. I don't wanna be managing anybody." So that's a big objection. But the third one is the cash flow liability and that fear of, so there's some kind of like sense of, well, if I just hire someone on a part-time basis on a 1099, I can pull the plug whenever I feel like it. they just it feels a little safer. But I 100% in agreement with you that the W-2 is the much better way to go. It just takes a lot more discomfort. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable to take that dive.
And it's safer for you. How unfair is that? I mean, that's when I think people bring on ICs and administrative help as a 1099, I'm like, yes, but that's safer for you. That doesn't
Right.
necessarily feel safer for that person. And when someone
Yeah.
feels unsafe, their innate reaction is to find safety. So
Yeah.
if you are inconsistently providing hours, that means they're not in a safe environment. And I
Yeah.
don't think that's a fair way to operate business. And my dad is a business owner. It's been in our business it's been in our family for over 100 years. And
Wow.
I got that integrity piece from him. I just really believe in when you treat people well, honestly, the profit and the revenue will follow. And imagine if you hire someone so great that you can now take 3 more intake calls and show up completely present for them. And now maybe your planning fee for each one of those is over a grand each. Multiply that times 4 weeks. I mean, the math is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's so straightforward if you just hold yourself accountable and say, "Okay, now that I've hired this help, I'm gonna close 3 more deals at a minimum of 15K per week, and I need to make sure that my marketing is matching that." And maybe they can help you with some of that, or maybe you get a $45 membership to an outsourced program like Moxie and Forth or Truevail that allows
Right.
you to scale in another way. So I just think there are great options for outsourcing, but when it comes to true administrative support and help that's day to day, that needs to be on your team. And I think of this because I did have one brand that everyone operated under. So it was a host, but it was its own brand as well. And I think about how reliant everyone also is on each other's reputation in that moment, and how frustrating that also may be if you have one advisor who's really a high performer and one advisor who might not be all in. And I just think about the inconsistency of client experience as well across a brand. And to me, that's quite precarious as well. So one, you could return to a book of business that does not exist anymore. And two, you could be handing off leads that you worked so hard for marketing
Mhm.
and paid for,
Yeah.
and that you honestly, this was the point that I was at. I had scaled to a point where I was like, I have too many leads. I'm going to give them away and I'm going to help them grow their book of business. It's great in theory. And I love that from the mentorship place that I was coming
Mhm.
from. And I'm not going to take away from the mission and the vision there. But if I were to ever go back into travel, and I'm not, but I've given all of my network away now as well. So it, it
Right.
it's just so interesting. I think I want to add one more thing to the accountability piece and the finance piece that we were talking about. Many people, when they hear W-2, they think, oh, I have not prepared my business for that in an,
Yes.
in an ecosystem way. I have not created SOPs. I have not documented anything. I don't have any processes. And whether or not you have someone on your team, you need to be documenting how you do things. I will say, kind of a similar situation. If anything were to happen to your health, to your family's health, and you did have administrative support, they can step in and mimic those processes. I was actually on vacation. I know that's like a taboo word in the travel industry, but I was on a true vacation, and my my client experience manager, she was able to step in and handle an entire situation that she had never touched before because it had been documented. And I was on
Wow.
safari. I wasn't even accessible, really.
Right.
And so you think about the situations you're putting yourself in by having your processes live in your head. It's not just that you want to keep your leads. It's not just that you're limiting your ability to scale. It's also that you're limiting your ability to take time off. You're limiting your ability to have a family emergency. And I think that every business, frankly, needs a client experience manager, even if it is part-time. And I think there are plenty of past teachers and
Oh,
uh,
yes.
people from finance that are detail oriented. that are getting out of careers because they are burning out, that are looking for part-time roles, that this could fit really well into their life. You just
Hmm.
have to find the right people. So don't be
And they're not entrepreneurial. They're not
afraid.
the type that are gonna have the inspiration to go start a business. It's just not how they're wired. When you are entrepreneurial, I think you tend to think that everybody else is too.
Right. You just hit on something though that I think is that really needs to be addressed, is that many
Yeah.
people hire and say, well, I'm going to hire them as my administrative assistant or my client experience manager, and then I'm going to move them into a booking role when they're ready.
Yes.
Why are you giving away your best talent and your support system?
Yeah.
And frankly, they're two different personalities and mindsets. I am
Yeah.
creative. I am the wanderlust, the dreamer. I love putting together the pitches and the sales aspect of it. That's not necessarily the same personality that's auditing your trips and creating your invoices and making sure everything is paid and all of your task lists are loaded properly. Those are two different skill sets. So I would
Yep.
challenge anyone listening, when you go to hire support, don't think who loves travel. Think who does not ever want to be in a sales role, and they are
Right.
just incredible at structure and order, and they fill in the gaps where your brain is not in that zone of genius.
You just answered a question that's been percolating in my head, and I didn't expect this podcast episode to take this direction, but
Well, I
it's
didn't
so
either.
important. It's such an important topic, and I'm really like, I have this person with HR background, so I want to take advantage of that. Um, what are your tips on, so if someone's finally ready to hire a customer experience manager, or maybe just booking support, plain
Sure.
old booking support, what are your tips on how to hire?
So
And
first,
they're willing to do the W-2.
yes. First thing first, I think we've actually created this system called do, delegate, dump, and automate. And you need to create
Ooh,
4 columns
love it.
of what you love to do, what you
Okay.
feel comfortable delegating, what is totally blocking you from progress that you can dump. And that could be marketing in areas that are absolutely not fruitful for you. If Instagram is not where your client lives, why are you spending an hour creating a carousel post on Canva? That
Mhm.
that 1 hour is so much better used creating SOPs and mentoring someone to give exceptional client experience. So do what you love to do. Delegate what you feel comfortable delegating that you no longer want to hold and that your business can do without you handholding that. Dump something that's completely blocking you from progress that frankly is a nice to have. And many times that's gifting, many times that's um, all of the things that we think make us very special and valuable that your clients might not even fully appreciate, frankly. They appreciate details, they appreciate seamlessness, they appreciate responsiveness. And then automate is max out your systems. So many people are sitting on gold mines of systems. And I know that you guys have an agreement with Turn, and we are official partners with Turn, and our
Yeah.
templates sync up with Turn. And so many people, I think Turn is actually one of those platforms where people are maxing it out, which I really appreciate. But many people are sitting on these platforms that they're paying for monthly and they're never learning the full capabilities of the automation and how it can actually take a lot of weight off of their plates. So that's the framework that you need to decide first. And then that delegate column is where you need to say, okay, what is one skill set? Because it is so easy to say in the delegate column, okay, I've got finance, I've got marketing, I've got client experience.
Mhm.
I'm going to hire someone that's going to do all that. There's not a magical unicorn out there. Okay.
No.
You have to outsource at low ticket. So to me, those items are potentially some email marketing templates, that is bookkeeping and accounting, that is legal templates. And then everything else is probably in a very similar bucket of client experience and just processes in your business and operations. And so you hire for that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a booking agent, and that is someone that actually does really like the creative part too. So I think there's two different skill sets depending on what you want to dump or delegate rather. What you want to delegate, you need to fill that gap. And then when you start recruiting, you need to be really honest about what they're telling you on their resume, the gaps in their resume, even if it's a family friend, even if someone referred. Sometimes relationships can be too close. Is it realistic that the relationship still allows you to manage someone properly? Because sometimes relationships are too close for that. Hiring your niece to do something, it can be touch and go. And hiring a friend. I actually work with one of my best friends, but we had a long conversation before this. Like, I think we're very good at compartmentalizing,
Mm,
and you have to have the ability to do that because you are going to have to lead them. And I say
yeah.
lead them because if you're hiring, I believe you are leading more than managing because you are now accountable for their livelihood. And that is a big responsibility to say, I'm taking on someone's living and I'm giving them an environment where they can thrive. So those are kind of the foundational steps when it comes into the actual interview process. I am quite rigid in my process. I have email templates, then we have step 1 interview, step 2, and we follow this. We actually created an entire course based on the HR principles of that called Agency Expansion Academy, and it has all those templates.
That is awesome.
It's a turnkey hiring solution because so many people don't know what to do and don't know what to ask, and it has an interview scorecard, and um, sometimes you need to be taken outside of your own subjective mind, and it needs to be in black and white for you to hire the right person. But there's a subjective aspect to it too. It has to feel good. It has to, you have to coexist with this person every day. So it's not completely black and white, but those are the foundational principles.
That is awesome. That's really, really helpful. And I think that one of the reasons why people are afraid to hire is because they're afraid to hire the wrong person
Right.
and then have it be a disaster. And then they end up doing the work that they're supposed to be delegating. And I've seen that happen over and over and over again. I did it myself. I've done it myself.
Of course.
Um, so, but I think one of the reasons why people are hiring the wrong person is because they're not doing what you just recommended, right? They don't have a process for it, and they're not getting clear on what the position is
Mhm.
and what skill sets are required to be successful at that position. And I how many times people have said this to me, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I just hired" yes, I am ready. In fact, I just spoke with my neighbor. Their daughter is just graduated from college and is looking for a job, and she's very well educated, and it's like, don't hire someone because they're available.
Right.
You put them through the same if someone does show up for you like that,
Mhm.
put them through the same process and make sure that you are interviewing other people so that this person that happens to be available proves to you that they are actually the right person to be hired.
It's funny
So,
that you say that because we actually Lauren, who's our marketing manager on the team, she is one of my best friends, but we have very strict rules of when we communicate in Slack, it is business only, and when we communicate via text, it is personal only, and we never mix the two because that's how we keep it clean. But when we were following the process, I did the exact same process. We actually had over 900 applicants for a marketing manager role, and I screened all of them, and I had over 20 interviews, and it just wasn't matching. And so we took it to the extreme where we actually brought in our fractional COO that we were working with last year. And I said, I need you to objectively interview her because I don't want, especially with my business partner, I don't want her to feel steamrolled. Like
yeah,
I want to bring in my friend, and now I have a friend in the mix, and it creates this kind of
yeah,
uneven dynamic. You never want that. So we let her interview 2 people, and she came back and echoed, everything we said. And it has worked out very well since. But I think having extra eyes and ears is really helpful. So even if you have a peer, even if you are a solopreneur, I would say bring in another advisor that you really trust and say, would you mind hopping on a call and just giving me your perspective? And you can both be on the call. It can be independent, but you can say, I will do the same for you, and just kind of have this buddy system to it.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree with that. Um, because it, when you do make the mistake of hiring the wrong person, it's not it's not a disaster. It's not the end of the world. And you learn so much from hiring the wrong person. So don't be afraid to hire because of that. But at the same time, if there are resources to help you do a better job, tap into those
Right.
resources so that you can create your own process, create your own, or even follow a process that's already been created for you.
Yeah. We've hired wrong. You're going to do it, and give your team members permission to fail before you assume they're the wrong hire, because they say that it takes 2 years to master anything, and if you're honest with yourself, I'm sure everyone listening to this as a travel advisor messed up in the first year of business. and and so it's unrealistic to hold someone to a different standard than you would hold
Yeah.
yourself, because we're all humans and we're all learning, and you have to set them up for success, and you have to be accepting of failures and give grace in the moment and say, realistically, is this something that's able to be overcome, or is this a skill set barrier that actually needs to be addressed? Because they say hire slow, fire fast. And I do believe in that. I think that's kind. Um, it is kind to take your time to make sure you have the right hire. But when that hire is not correct, it is also
Awesome.
kind to release them and give them a chance to shine elsewhere, is what we would say.
Yes. 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 But the fire fast is really hard. Especially, I don't know, as women, I think we have a tendency to be people pleasers too. So we're so afraid of like hurting someone's feelings or making them feel bad about themselves. But yes, I've always lived by that philosophy of hire slowly, fire fast. I may not have been good at doing it,
Right.
but it's in my head.
Right.
I am aware of it. Hey, Travel Business Unpacked listeners, Meredith Calloway here. If you're enjoying the podcast, I've got something else I think you'll love. The book, The Seven Figure Travel Entrepreneur, is officially out now. It's all about building a business that's intentional, profitable, and actually sustainable, and leads to six-figure earnings. And I've made the entire first chapter free for you. It's my way of saying thank you for listening and being a part of this community as you build your luxury travel business. You can download it now at giftedtravelnetwork.com/book. Now, let's get back to the episode. So, I wanted to get to a question that we recorded your podcast episode yesterday with me as the guest. And I want to ask Jennifer the same question that I got asked yesterday, which is what does it really take, in your opinion, to build a seven-figure producing, six-figure earning travel business?
So I will echo something that I know that you're incredibly passionate about. Is it requires a strong identity, and that goes back to knowing who you want to target. When I started, I had this very generic logo. I had a website I paid $500 for. I was just trying to go live, and I think
Yeah.
that's so many people are overcome with excitement that they just want to get it out into the world, that they don't do the fundamental steps to say, who am I targeting? And who am I not targeting? And how do I actually detract them? Like, how do I get them out of my ecosystem? How do I make it clear I don't want to work with them in a kind way? Because you never want to, you don't want to shut the door in someone's face if they come
No.
your house, kind of thing. But I always believe in giving someone something to walk away with. So even if they weren't the right client for me, I would give them a redirection or a
Yeah.
resource that they could learn from, because I just believe that everyone works so hard, especially right now, for their hard-earned income, and every dime, whether it is a $3,000 trip that might not fit in with your book of business, they have sacrificed to make something happen for their family, and I never wanted to detract from the importance of that. And I might not be their travel advisor, but I can definitely serve them in a way. And that might be sending them to someone else who would love to be their travel advisor. Or it might be saying, here's a recommendation of how you can do this DIY. I believe in creating a business that makes it very clear who you want to serve and who you don't want to serve. But that came from trying to attract everyone that traveled in the beginning. And I went through a massive rebrand during COVID, which was actually the impetus for Tique because I realized that everyone was doing this as well. Because now I had 12 advisors on my team, and I'm like, okay, my watercolor logo and my $500 website is now not representative of the level of service and product that they want to represent. And I need to raise my standards here and step into a brand identity that they're going to be really proud of. And so that was the first kind of awakening to brand identity. And that allowed people to market proudly and step into intake calls and say, here is my website. This is what we do. I have my own landing page. And that included an inquiry form that clearly defined who they were, what they did. It defined thresholds of minimum investments. It also talked about terms and conditions. It was very professional. And so, first things first is you need an infrastructure, a digital address, and a technological infrastructure that allows you to feel confident and is going to grow at the speed that you're going to grow. Because many times people start their business and they don't realize how quickly momentum picks up. And all of a sudden, here they are 3 months in, 6 months in, and they're like, I just got so busy and I thought that I would have time to build the systems that I never built.
Yeah.
So it starts with branding, but then it goes to scalable systems. And that goes back to workflow templates, really ironclad terms and conditions, a CRM system that you are using to its fullest capacity. And then after that, it's mindset. I mean, if you have those foundational principles, after that, you are either your best advocate or your worst enemy. You can either hold yourself back and say, the next stage of business looks scary and is too big, or you can say, bring it on, let's charge with the bulls. So it's about resilience, it's about grit and bravery. And frankly, any entrepreneur is so brave.
I
It's
agree.
it's so brave to put yourself out there and to market yourself and to put a piece of your heart out into the world and have it so vulnerably
Yeah.
on display. And anyone that says that business isn't personal, they've never owned their own business because everything feels personal. You get a ping at 12 a.m. and you're like, I got a new lead. It is so personal. So I think after that, it is about the mental fitness that you and I have spoken about and the accountability and the ownership of really stepping into the entrepreneurial business owner role rather than just simply the passionate traveler
Yes. Or salesperson.
or salesperson.
Yeah.
You can be really great at sales and you can have a very impressive book of business with 2, 3, $5 million worth of sales. But if you show me your P&L statement because you're abandoning the business and you spent, you know, what you actually earned on FAMs and travel that year,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. And actually, the IRS is going to deem that a hobby and they might not even allow you to write things off. There are weighty repercussions to failing to treat your business like a business. And so I understand in year 1 and 2, it's kind of hard to get your footing and understand expenses, but many times people are using travel as a reason to have
Yes.
high expenses and to upgrade to first class. And unless your clients are upgrading to first class all the time and you need to know the actual quality of that cabin, that's not a typical business expense that you need to take. That's a luxury item and it's not really an expense at that point. And
Right.
actually, your accountant might say you can expense the flight, but you can't expense the upgrade. So that's, again, a whole nother topic, but just
Yeah.
be accountable and be diligent on what you're spending money on and don't get caught up in the emotion of a new business. Just act like it's your own bank account because it is. And I think people treat it a little bit like fun money because it's like, oh, it's a write-off. That's the biggest thing is I think people are afraid to look at numbers and forecast it and metrics and really drill down on what that means for a business because it is vulnerable.
Yeah, I love that. And what we found is we have 2 different avatars for our travel MBA program. And they're very similar, but one of the biggest differences between the two is that the first one is supporting or contributing to the household income, whereas the second one is supporting themselves.
Yeah.
They're the sole provider for the household income. And it's interesting how much, because it forces them to be committed to it, right? We talked about that yesterday, the difference between being interested in success and committed to your success. When you are the sole provider for your livelihood, you're much more likely to really take that business owner role seriously. And you don't see it as fun money because you're like,
I will say having a partner has really held me accountable for that because now we make financial decisions. We have created a real budget. We have worked with a fractional CFO and we've talked about the forecasting that we want to hit and the goals we want to hit. And that's based on profit. That's not based on sales. I
right.
just think that this industry rewards high sales when it comes to getting into shows and awards. And there is so much merit to that. You hustled to hit those sales numbers. Don't get me wrong. There is a lot to be said for how hard people are working to hit those sales numbers, but that is a fast road to burnout if that's where you're hanging your hat.
Yeah.
You need to be looking at, is this giving me the life that I want? One, first step, is this providing for the life that I need at a minimum level? And then two, the level you graduate to is this giving me the lifestyle and the livelihood for myself that I want? And that's where you need to be. But that's a whole formulaic approach that you have to work backwards from.
Mm. Yep. Exactly. It has to be reverse engineered. There is so much more that I would love to unpack, but I also know that you do have another role, responsibility, and that I don't want to take up any more of your time. So thank you for being an excellent guest on today's episode. If people want to know more about what Tique does or learn more about how to consume what you're preaching here,
Yeah.
where do
Well,
they go?
they can always listen to Tique Talks. We are found on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And you will soon hear Meredith on that podcast as well. So thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast as well. It was a fantastic conversation. I actually shared with our podcast manager, I said, you're going to have very little to trim on this one. It was all so good. Um, and if you want to learn more about the resources that we provide to the industry, it's teakhq.com. We are more than happy to answer any questions for you. There is a contact form on there. So please don't hesitate to use it if you want to know more about us, more about our products. Just reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer. And we'll see you all on the next episode. Bye, everyone.